Today, we're looking at another smartphone with two screens, and this one only costs $250. So let's jump right in. This phone is called the V60. Just like the Wing we took a look at a few weeks ago, this dual screen contraption also comes from LG as a sort of last hurrah before the company shut down its mobile phone business in 2021. So that's a bit of the context. But what is this all about? Well, the V60 certainly looks unique, but the phone isn't actually dual screen by default. Rather, this is an official add-on case which works natively with the V60. Popping the phone out reveals that it's all done via USB-C, but I'll get to the juicy details on that a little later on in the video. Because beyond this insanely cool case, the V60 itself holds more quirks to sink our teeth into. First, I want to talk about the basics, starting with the design. Something that surprised me when I first held this phone after a few years is how well the aesthetic holds up even today. The V60 looks particularly slick in this navy blue colorway. It just oozes premiumness, especially with the gold rails. It also feels good in the hands as well. There's some heft to it, but I really like the chamfered edges on the rails, which help to add some grip. For this design as a whole, I wouldn't expect anything less from LG's top-of-the-line flagship for the time. But especially if you're spending around $180 to $220 just on the phone alone, it certainly doesn't feel like you cheaped out. Speaking of flagships, unlike that LG Wing that I mentioned earlier, the V60 is way more competent a smartphone by 2023 standards when it comes to performance. Powered by a Snapdragon 865G, this chip was flagship spec for 2019 and still packs a solid punch in current day. Of course, with this being an older phone, you should curb your expectations appropriately, but when we're talking about performance roughly equivalent to something like the newer Tensor G2 on the Pixel 7, suddenly this 3-year-old LG V60 doesn't look too shabby. And on top of that, it just got updated to Android 13 earlier this year. So it's relatively up to date on the software side, though just keep in mind that technically it's the final year of committed software updates from LG, and that you'll be on your own if you're planning on using the V60 long term. However, the real reason why any enthusiast would look at the V60 today is because it truly embodied the idea of a no compromises flagship. Oh, look, it's me! I'm in the phone.
Hi.
Hi. Where phone manufacturers like Apple and Samsung would consciously simplify and take away features from their high-end devices, the gimmick with LG's V series phones was that they did the exact opposite, which is to say, keeping features in or adding ones that genuinely felt useful. One of those that stood out to me a lot is the headphone jack. Sure, these days, Bluetooth headphones are pretty common, but as someone that still enjoys a nice pair of wired headphones every now and then, the V60 scratches that itch with flying colors. Not only does it do the job, but LG also fit this phone with a high-quality DAC. Trying out the V60 with my tried and true COS Porter Pros or even my Sony CD900 STs, the sound quality I was getting was impressive, especially while playing high-res audio files on Apple Music. And depending on what headphones you're using, messing around with the digital filters and presets built in can add a tasteful dab of color and excitement to the sound. Oh my God. Now, I don't want to oversell the DAC. I still think you can get better sound and more power for high-impedance headphones when using an external USB one. But again, we got to appreciate the effort that LG put in here. Speaking of excellent audio, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Soundcore by Anker, and the Motion X500, their brand new compact high-fidelity speaker. The X500 might look relatively small, but you'll be impressed with how well it fills your room with sound. With two full-range drivers on the front and an upward firing one on top, offering 40 watts of output total, the soundstage is not only incredibly wide, but the X500 also gets very loud as well, with no distortion at higher volumes. The secret sauce for this impressive performance is Soundcore's spatial audio algorithm that works to make you feel a level of immersion that puts you right in the middle of your music. Combined with this speaker's ability to take in LDAC audio over Bluetooth means you can play high-fidelity music with more clarity and detail, while also having the freedom to move it around wherever the party goes. The X500 is rated for 12 hours of playtime on its built-in battery, has IPX7 water resistance, making it perfect for poolside hangouts or the beach, and there is a ton of customization available on the app as well, including equalizer presets to complement the music you love. Oh, and there's also RGB up top that you can customize to your heart's content. If you're interested in checking out the X500 for yourself, check out the link in the description, and huge thanks to Soundcore for sponsoring this video. The V60's biggest gimmick by far is this add-on case, which transforms it into a dual-screen phone. It does make this whole thing chunkier, but considering that people put cases on their phones anyway, the extra heft isn't too bad given the extra functionality. As far as the second screen goes, it's basically a carbon copy of the V60's main display, with the same color, brightness, and even has a notch, though this one does not have a camera in it. Though of course, what's really important here is how Android takes advantage of the extra display. I love how simple multitasking is on this V60. All you have to do is launch apps on the respective screens you want, and you're practically good to go. Watch a YouTube video while playing Genshin, browse Twitter while watching Netflix, or type up Google Docs while doing research on Chrome. LG more or less lets you run any apps you want in tandem, and you can even save app pairings as presets on your home screen for easy access. Then, for those times when you want to use the phone in single screen mode, flip the auxiliary screen back and it automatically shuts off to prevent accidental inputs and to save battery. Speaking of which, the dual screen case does not have its own battery and actually draws power from the phone itself. I think this is an okay trade-off in order to keep the size down, and it doesn't drain the battery as much as I thought it would. The V60's 5,000 milliamp hour battery lasts through a whole workday and part of the evening while running apps in tandem on both displays. Now, don't get me wrong, the battery life is not amazing, but I think it's livable and can certainly go farther with a bit of optimization. However, all of this being said, I do have some big gripes with this case. For one, I don't like the way it looks, especially considering how nice the V60 looks stock. Cases will always dull the look of a phone, but this one in particular gets all kinds of smudgy, especially on the cover portion. In fairness, it's nice that they give you a small screen for the time and some notification icons, but this whole thing does not need to be glass. Again, this thing gets super fingerprinty, but it's also another thing that can break, which frankly speaking is dumb design, considering this entire case retailed for $100 back in the day. In fact, I paid $80 for this in 2023, new in box. Still feel like it was kind of a rip. Also, while somewhat unavoidable, another pain point that I had is that the secondary display is exposed to the elements when the hinge is fully open for full screen use. If you already have anxiety about cracking glass on your phone, imagine having a usable screen on both sides. Not good. Additionally, I don't love the charging solution on this case. With the USB-C port plugging into the phone inside the case, there's not a lot of room for pass-through power from the outside. So the solution that LG figured out was a low-profile magnetic pogo connector. Now, to its credit, it's pretty nice and convenient in the same way that old-school MagSafe was on MacBooks. But I don't like that it's proprietary. Of course, the case includes an adapter in the box that plugs into USB-C on one end. But if you lose that tiny little guy, it'll cost $25 to replace. And if not for that, you'll be taking the V60 in and out of the case every single time you need to charge, which, as you can imagine, would be pretty annoying. Though for me personally, given the trade-offs, I rarely keep the case on anyway. The V60 just feels better in its purest form. Simple design, but enthusiast-focused and relatively up-to-date on its software. It's hard to ask for anything more, except for maybe LG to come back and give us a sequel. Only one can dream. That's it. It's just a dream. I don't think they're coming back. Fingers crossed though, fingers crossed. But let me know what you guys think of the V60 in the comments below. And otherwise, thanks for watching this episode on Denki channel, and also to Soundcore for sponsoring today's video.